Hey, John.
Good morning, Mark.
Good
How are you?
morning. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Did Winnipeg play last night?
They did. Last I saw it, it was 2-0 Winnipeg.
Very interesting.
I'm gonna look that up right now.
There were a few games last night, I think.
Yeah, I have Minnesota on my work, playoff tree. We have a office.
They look good the other. They look good the other day.
And who else was playing was Pittsburgh and what were their playing? And they were getting last I saw that it was like 4-0 for the other team. So like Pittsburgh won 7-0 their last game, and now they're down 4-0. Everybody, it was like a flip from the first.
Let me look at. Looks like I got a bunch of ads here.
4-1 final, Winnipeg, Minnesota. Wow, they did it. Let's see, Pittsburgh. Philadelphia Flyers 5-1.
Yeah. Wow.
Holy moly. And that was 7-0 for Pittsburgh, their first game.
So that's going to be an interesting series. Because the other night, Winnipeg. God, what did they win the other night? I can't seem to find that.
Game one.
Can't seem to find what they did the other night. Maybe I'm.
Oh, game one? This says game one. It was 3-2 for Winnipeg. I thought Minnesota won.
No, they went ahead early, and then they scored. And they scored again in the third period. Yeah, I'm looking at the box. I saw the goal in the second period. I guess that was Wednesday night, right?
Yeah. Oh, I thought Minnesota like trounced them Wednesday.
They did last night, though. So how long are these guys? Is it like best of 5? Is that how this works?
7. Best of 7.
It's a lot of games.
Yeah.
They'll go till June. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I don't know how long it goes for.
Okay.
Probably.
I invited Stefan, but he's not.
I'll send him a text message.
Yeah, I guess.
Toronto got just polarized.
I'm sure that's Stefan's team. Is that your team as well?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
I can imagine. I had a person. Hey, Stefan. I had a young woman from my first semester in comp design, so that would have been last fall. She actually was from Ottawa, and so she was a big fan of their team.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Are you guys the games, right? Are you guys able? Is it easy for you guys to drive to and from school, do you ever get hung up or snagged because
It
you're going
depends
to
on the
class?
time. Sometimes it takes. Sometimes, like especially if I want to go after work, it can take me like an hour and a half, hour 45 sometimes.
Because you're a student, they
No, the tunnel is usually kind of bad, but then the M10 just gets so backed up.
yeah,
I've been on the
but I
M10
mean
for
at
like
the border, is it how problematic is it for you guys to
no problem.
cross because you're a student?
No, we have the paperwork. So as long as the paperwork's in order, there's no problem. I usually fly in about 20 minutes.
I know a couple of people who've had problems though. There's a student Pascal who gets like called in all the time, and then but I mean, it depends on their history, right? Because like he, I mean, he moved to Canada. I mean, I think years ago, but then he lived in the States for a few months, and then he lived in Windsor for a few months. But he moved from Toronto, so then they start looking at the history. And they're like, "There's too much going on," and then they call you in. If there's like the paperwork's really easy, then they just like for me, it's just I live in Windsor. I'm crossing the border. They say, "Oh yeah, do you have your F1?" I usually say yeah, and I have it in my hand. They're like, "Don't even show it to me." Cross. So
I asked because the young lady that I'm talking about actually drove in for her final review. She drove in from Ottawa. She crossed the bridge, and then the U.S. made her turn around. She drove 10 or 11 hours to be at our review and had to turn around and didn't get settled to her brother's house until, like in Hamilton.
did she have all the visa?
Yeah, I don't know what she had or didn't have.
So chances are she didn't have the I-20. That's once we have the I-20, we fly in and out. It'll say exactly how much, what program we're in, has all the details, and it gets signed up every year. So we really don't have problems. The first time that we came down, before I got the I-20, it was a bit of a hassle.
So does she obtain the I-20 in Ottawa?
No, through Lawrence Tech, actually.
So who does she talk to at Lawrence Tech?
She has to go to the border to get it stamped into her passport. Like we have to get an I-20 from Lawrence Tech, and then the first time we crossed, we have to go in and then pay a fee, sign some stuff. They look everything over, and then they stamp our passport and then staple a little piece of paper in our passport. So if she was like, I wonder if she was only doing it online,
she
never went and like did all that process. So now the first time she crosses and tells them I'm going to school in the States, they say, "What? You've been going to school in the States for 6 months and you've never come in to get this stamped in?" And then once you tell them
that makes the needle go haywire for them.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much, right? Once the needle goes, they can be pretty they can be hot shots.
Okay, so who at the university do they go to get the?
When I was going through the process, I spoke to Nicole. I could forward you her contact info.
Yeah, do that, please.
Okay. And she set us up.
I think that Nancy from my last class, who goes back and forth between the U.S. and Mexico to live and work. Plus, and with our current president, that's just like crazy, ridiculously scary. And then with Lynn, who's from Ottawa and has only done the online thing, and she'll be able to do everything she needs to get her master's online, except for the summer class, which I just connected with her the other day and told her, I asked her if she was coming this summer, and she said yes. I said, I told her that I'm going to meet Nancy and her and someone else, I can't remember, at the June. They have 4 sessions, 4 weekends. So I'm going to try and meet them at the June session.
Okay.
But I'm sure she's never done the I-20.
There's like the international office for international students.
Right.
I think it's on the 4th floor of like where the One Stop is. What building is that called? You know, the big glass building with
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's on the 4th floor there.
There we go. I just found her email.
I'm sure she could do it like over the phone, maybe, or maybe there's some sort of consulate she could go to in Ottawa to get it like, set up. Because like you don't, like driving 10 hours and then finding out you can't cross.
Oh, she was hysterical.
Yeah, that's crazy.
She was in tears. She was in tears at her final review. She had to turn around and drive back. She couldn't drive 10 hours. She didn't know where to go, and she remembered her brother, right, was in London or Hamilton, so she drove all the way there. I mean, it was like a 15-hour drive day.
And it's your final.
And it was the night before her final, right?
Oh my God.
Which, you know, of course she nailed because she's, you know, Canadian and she's a really good student. And so anyways, I think she went to Ryerson.
Oh, yeah. My sister graduated that program, or graduated Ryerson in urban planning.
You did?
My sister.
So yeah, I think Lawrence Tech has a really good connection with Ryerson. I've seen a lot of students since like 2006 or 7 come through the program. Almost all of the ones that I've met and worked with have been top drawer students, just high performing students. Like I don't think one of them was a weak student.
Yeah, Ryerson's a good school.
That's the only polytechnic that we have.
What's that?
I think it's the only polytechnic that we still have.
Probably.
Yeah. Mark, can you resend the invitation? I'll open it up on my laptop.
Sure. Done. Okay, I'm looking at your drawings. First of all, it doesn't look like the plan changes at all in terms of the corner unit, except that in the proposed unit there is some sort of bump out where the section cut is along 5.1A, and that's obviously kind of the armature of the thing that you guys are proposing.
Yeah, we tried to keep it as little intrusion to the plans that we had as possible. I think because we got so far, changing them right now would be just a nightmare for everything.
Yeah.
So we proposed to put in a couple of more structural columns to disperse the load from the CLT deck above.
Yeah.
And right now, I think we're showing 8x8 columns, and they're kind of more put closely together just to kind of take that load of the beam and that the flooring. But we're trying to use.
I think the other advantage to the proposed plan is that it's more opened up, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yes. Yeah. Before, I think we were showing about 9 to 10 feet of open windows. Now we've got the entire wall
with a corner.
With the corner, yeah, being kind of blocked off. And then those columns will get cladded with the hardy board just to kind of make it consistent with everything else. So
mm-hmm. That part I'm not convinced about, but
because we're gonna have to clad the columns with something, correct?
Yeah, but I think the thing that I mean, I appreciate what you're trying to do with the let's call them mullions,
okay,
and not columns, because there's going to be a column at the corner at 6A, but I think the others are really just mullions, and maybe you ought to look at another elevation scheme that leaves the hardy plank board everywhere you've got it, with the exception of the 2 columns, if you will, the 2 vertical mullions in that window grouping, and let them become brake metal finished to match the window frame itself. That way, I think what will happen is that these windows of 3 will read as 1 window and not 3 punched windows. I think it will be less distracting, and then I think also the Hardy board as a kind of a trace or a frame around this 4 floors of openings will be actually stronger.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Also, I'm not seeing, what I guess I'm seeing is the John R. elevation, the clip of the John R. elevation. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So I'm not really seeing
the Alfred.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing it in the perspective either. What I'm not getting in the perspective is that kind of armature. What is the? Oh, I'm. Forgive me. So I'm looking at your plan.
Okay.
I'm looking at the section cut, which has a tail that runs east and west, right? And it's the same thickness as the walls.
Oh.
Right.
So
It looks like there's kind of like an enclosed porch on the balcony, right?
That's the one behind it.
Yeah. So really the armature of Hardy Plank is the tab at 5.1A and at 6B.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, that's not a wall that's sort of sitting where the 2 strings of dimensions at 5'4" are. So I was looking for that in the elevation. So that's my misread. What has happened with your sort of perforated metal?
We're still trying to figure out how to properly, because the one big issue is that we're talking about is we don't want to cage off those units, because even I think during our first crit that we had with Michael, I kind of gauged that it was his reaction when we showed the perforated metal on the balconies, and it was more like, okay, you might be caging off people.
Yeah.
Which is something that we're kind of really hesitant to do. We want to kind of use it in such a way that it allows natural light, but it still moves with the building. Like in terms of the perforated metal, it kind of makes sense in terms of it's really, I guess, it's dependent on what the temperature is and how the environment, the surrounding is. So that's what kind of brought us to kind of thinking about that as a material. We just want to find a proper way of including it without making it look like a tack on.
Right.
Yeah.
The proposed drawing is not showing the balcony guardrail.
Yes, that's correct.
Everywhere. It's showing it on other cases, but it doesn't show it resolved yet here.
That's like one of the questions that we have in terms of should we use as the perforated metal or the balcony rail as a full screen and punch out the negatives for when we want let's say the openings to be, but would that feel too caged off in that case?
It might feel too contained.
Yeah. Because right now we're tabling the fact of maybe toning down those balconies right now. I think we're showing them at 5 feet, but because of how the structure is behind it, we might have to bring it down to maybe 3'6" at the maximum, just so we could properly support them off of the deck and off of the beam below it.
Yeah, they really only need to be about 4 feet at the most in this instance. Have you thought about, I'm looking at the proposed elevation again. Have you guys thought about extending it, the Hardy plank at the top so that it's above the 58 foot? So that the vertical is one dimension, but the horizontal that folds is actually taller than the metal panel facade adjacent to it?
We could do that, yeah. I think for the time being, we just kind of drew it up so we could show you that we were thinking of breaking that corner really hard, just to make it stand out. To have some kind
I think this is the right. Generally, it's the right move, because I really appreciate the way this is starting to emphasize the corner.
Okay.
You've actually got a lot of nice moments along if you kind of like study the facade as it's marching along Alfred, turning the corner. First of all, it turns the corner, I think, much more successfully than the existing elevation sketch that you've got, right? Or perspective. I think it actually helps make the unique vertical graining that happens in the building stronger. I just think that it could actually be more emphatic. I mean, it's actually using less of the board, less of the hardy plank in terms of quantity, but it seems to read more effectively because it's got depth and a soffit, right? That thing that wraps around has kind of a horizontal quality, like it's got sort of thickness and dimension to it, which I think gives it more reading. I'm wondering. I'm just wondering if it could actually be taller, so that the horizontal piece at the very top, that crown, is actually taller than it is as it runs vertically. That might be something to look at. As far as the guardrails go, yeah, I'm torn. That north facade is not going to get much direct
That's true, yeah.
sunlight. You know, it will in June when the sunrise and the sunset are well past due east and west. So it'll get morning sunrise and it'll get evening sunset. So I don't want to discourage a view or the admission of light into natural light into that unit from that north facade. The east facade is going to get natural light at any time of the year, except after 10 or 11 in the morning in the summer, and so on. So I don't know that screening them or opaquing them or making them contained any more than a guardrail will is the right idea. I mean, you could look at what are the other guardrails? What is that material? Because it looks like glass in these renderings.
So we were playing around with using that screen as for the existing. It was at least the screen was the guardrail, but now we kind of looked at different options, maybe using different materials, because we could essentially, since we opened it up and it's more kind of airy, that corner, we could use a heavier material for the balcony guard itself, and we'll still kind of achieve that kind of balance that we're looking for. Like even using, let's say, metallic panels or something, or any kind of material that has like perforations already kind of preset in it, just to kind of give it some kind of visual appeal, will kind of work with the building. Maybe something that's more, I would say probably more linear in the vertical direction would kind of allow us to kind of keep that grain consistent. Because the only thing that I'm kind of worried about is not to make it look like an optical illusion.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to this. I guess if I mean, let me screen share somebody's work that you guys may know. You're in Toronto. You guys know this firm? Let me screen share it real quick.
Okay.
I nominated them for the Alumni Award.
You see it?
Do you know them? They're from Lawrence Tech.
No, I'm not too familiar. Are they relatively new?
New to Chicago, or new to
Toronto?
New to Toronto. They were out west for a number of years.
Okay.
This is not a balcony. This is a duplex, right? Okay. But one option is to maybe take the north facade, all of it, or two windows or one window, and not treat it as a series of linear balconies or linear guardrails, but treat it as a giant multi-story, 4-story curtain that is perforation.
Okay.
Right? So that it is, I'm reluctant to suggest this, but so that it is a completely different element on the entire facade. And is something that all of the units will look through. But again, I think suggesting something like this may mean that the frame that we in HardiePlank that we just sort of talked about, we may need to recalibrate that as well. Let me see if there's any other shots of this thing. This is kind of a close-up of it. It's a young married couple, this firm, Bate Kasorba, and they were here in Detroit. They went to school at Lawrence Tech, graduated together, worked at Morphosis and Gensler and Smith Group before that, and have sort of created this. They've just won. Yeah, this is good. So that would be kind of the effect, right?
Okay.
And I'm not endorsing this for you guys, but I mean, this is actually like wood, right? But the idea that, like, if this space was the balcony, right, and this thing right here was the balcony slab, right, that we were standing on right here, that could be the effect of it. But it wouldn't necessarily wrap around all, both facades. I'm going to end the screen share for a second.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go back to your drawing. It might simply be on, let me go back to your screen share, your drawing. It might just be, here or here or the whole thing.
Oh, so like inside of it?
Inside of it or outside of it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. There might need to be a couple of sketches on it. I mean, okay. at one moment, I'm happy to just say why not just the glass mullion, but a glass balustrade and guardrail. Don't make such a big deal out of this. But at the other moment, this could be a really interesting proposition, and I've always advocated that you guys all look for a design project within the project. And these kinds of details, like the guardrails, which are these simple, prosaic, off-the-shelf solutions for most of us, is something that you could use as an opportunity to sort of flex your muscles. So I don't want to discourage you about it, but I also want you to gauge your time in this exercise in such a way that it makes sense.
Mark, what do you think? Would it make more sense, since we're going to have that corner detail duplicated on the other side to catch the other corner? Maybe look at let's say the last panel of glass and stretch it over let's say the equitone to the other side and make that as like a feature wall with that kind of panel in mind.
That could be interesting too.
Because because those are all bedrooms in that area. Yeah. And that might be a really interesting feature for the bedrooms in terms of light, right?
Yeah.
And then this way we still have the balconies exposed. We could do some kind of simple rail that catches the corner just as a safety precaution, but that would be a feature wall for the north face of the building as a welcoming feature.
Can you fire up the model? Can you share your model with me to walk me through that condition?
1 second. Let me just still trying to get set up over here because I'm streaming right off my phone.
Yep.
Give me 1 moment. How does Desmond add another person to a call?
How do I do that?
Yeah, because I want to add my laptop to it. So
can I send it again to you?
I think so.
I just sent you another one.
All right, let's see if that works. See if that works. Please work. Oh, there we go. Hey, let me just try one thing really quickly. I'll get out of this call and try to transfer it over onto my laptop.
Okay.
All right.
I'm just going to go ahead and send him another invite just in case something.
Yeah.
We were looking at we had a lunch and learn the other day. From Kingspan.
Kingspan?
Yeah, who are big. Kingspan is the parent company, and they own lots of different facade assembly enclosure companies. The lunch and learn was on insulated metal panels, but in the overview, I learned, Kingspan is like a major sponsor for soccer, for example. So you've probably seen their logo. But in any event, you could look this company up. They have a really interesting palette of companies that they are associated with, and there may be other materials that you guys could consider, not as a replacement to the Equitone, but for this balcony railing thing. Okay, I see your model, Stefan.
Okay, so we've only changed.
You've only resolved it on the hard corner.
We did, yes.
Yeah.
If we figure out the details, then it's a matter of essentially. But what I was doing would be. So I'm just going to fly through this really quickly. So that's in using the panel.
Mm-hmm.
Do you really want it in front of bedrooms, though?
If it's perforated, it really privacy in that feel. Because with the bedroom,
I want that feel though in a bedroom. Like when I'm in a bedroom, I want to be able to look out the window and see what's going on, see across the street.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. It is that gap of the Equitone facade is a significant one. So this is going to read really
heavy.
Well, it's going to be dominant, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
You may have to model it to see what that's like inside. If you watch that Larry Scarpa lecture, he has a shot. Let me. I think it's on their own website.
With those extrusions.
Well, he had a school that he did in at Brooks Scarpa. It's actually prominent on their website, and he has a classroom that looks out through this condition. Come on. Bear with me. I thought it would be real easy to find.
Is it the one that's like looks like
blue? It's a
all blue.
Yeah, it's all blue. Oh shoot!
I want to see a picture from the interior. I just Googled it. I'm seeing like a bunch of like overall exterior shots. I think I know the part you're talking about, but I want to see it like from the inside.
It's the Green Dot High School. So if I go back to his site, and here's another case. Go to Cherokee Studios.
Cherokee Studios.
Can you screenshot? Or,
yeah, let me do that.
Sure.
Yeah, keep your model there. So this is. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
So the Cherokee Studios is a really small mixed-use building, and this facade is not only a scrim of perforated metal, but it's also operable, right? Mm-hmm. So it can open and close based on an owner's desire.
Yeah, that's a bit better. So you can.
I don't know that there's a shot of it from the inside, but it is a changing facade. He kind of ran a video of it to show us, like, these are closed right now, but they're open here. And it is a major feature wall. I mean, this thing is as big as what you guys were just proposing right here.
Yeah.
That side. Yeah. Here they're all closed again. And he did that here, just so you understand, because it's LA and it was kind of a cruddy site, and you know, he wanted to sort of create the opportunity for like privacy or vista, right? That's always what stuff like this was about. So here's some other shots. Oh, I guess that's the end of the. What happened? I guess it's the only. No, they only have this one picture. What is this? Arc Daily in Spanish? Good grief. Yeah, it is. Anyways, that's a project that came to mind. And then the what was the other one? The school?
Because it doesn't have to reach over to the other side. Since we have those, like, essentially the bedroom window is broken down into two.
Right.
If we flip them and have the smaller ones on balconies, we can cover off a portion of them, but it's part exposed.
Right.
And have the best of two. Now, kind of going into it and making it operable would be a little bit difficult.
Right.
Time we have left.
Here's that school that I was talking about. So this is a giant frame. Think of your frame, right? And these they're blue vertical pieces, right? Here they are in another shot. Here's a different version of them in this shot. See, in Los Angeles, where there's an abundance of sun, I know he has an interior shot. Yeah, so this is the view that he was really excited about when he lectured. He showed essentially this shot, and this is looking at a balcony, right? Looking through that scrim, that blue scrim, or another shot. Now, this is maybe south facing, right? Yours is north facing. You're never going to get light contrast quite pronounced as this. And this is like the balcony effect of it.
But we're talking about like a living space.
That's right. Yeah, you have to gauge all of your specific conditions, right, to what this sort of precedent is suggesting here. You have to evaluate whether or not this is the right thing for you guys to do. Okay, I'm going to stop screen sharing so we can look at your model. Okay.
The one thing I'm thinking about and I'm sort of afraid of is that, especially at like this point in the design, if we are just adding things to it, like you're adding what's coming across my mind is like, you know, when people have you know, a Bronco. I just saw a Bronco driving down the street yesterday, and then they kept adding those, like, you know, the chrome license plate cover, and then the big.
Yeah, they soup it up. Do people still have Broncos? Are there Broncos on the road?
You know what I mean, though, right?
Yeah.
Like and at what point does it become? What's a good word for it? You know, tchotchke.
So you guys, maybe
it has to be intrinsic to the design.
Yeah, let me look at the Alfred Street elevation as a clip here. Can we see that?
Sure.
Because I feel like what you guys have proposed for this corner is really appropriate for the hard corner of the building, and it may not be the way you resolve the other Alfred Street corner.
Yeah.
Let me just.
Because we want this corner to be the prominent focal point.
Let me change one thing and see how it's going to look with the metal panel.
Okay.
We'll only take a second.
Yep. Oh, shoot.
I started reading Le Corbusier's Towards a New Architecture last night.
Oh, it's good.
I got a little bit in. I'm excited to keep going with it, though.
Yeah, it's interesting how he talks about, you know, nautical maritime design as an inspiration in his own work, and
that's what I just got up to. That he just started. Well, no, he was talking about planes at this point. I didn't.
Yeah. You have to remember, this is like written in like World War II, like 1922. If I recall.
1922, okay.
Right. Before I was even born. Before even I was born. So it's a pretty, but this was a period, right, when architects were writing a great deal because the economy was so bad, right? The world economy was just so flat that many architects wrote or taught or painted or sculpted, or in the case of Corbusier, they did all of those things.
Right.
He did all of those things. He designed furniture. You know, that's how the Bauhaus was created, really out of frustration and necessity. These creative sort of manifestations occurred. You should, when you get through this, you may want to pick up another another book. It's written by a guy named edited by a guy named Ulrich Conrads, plural, and it's called Programs and Manifestos of the 20th Century. And it's kind of this interesting sampling of the texts, like the real texts by all of the prominent thinkers and writers and artists and architects at this same time, right? And the stuff that's really, really interesting to read, in my opinion, is the stuff by the Futurists, the Italian architects from this period. Each country had its own kind of camp or club or school of thought, and the Futurists, you know, Giacomo Balla, Umberto Boccioni, all of these guys. I mean, in the Italian economy, well, it's always been dismal, but they were like really, really frustrated. And so everything that they wrote was like, the history is bad, blow it up. You know, I mean, they were talking about just obliterating and decimating the old context and replace it with like the new context, you know, replace it with new ideas, new forms, new meanings. I mean, they kind of just like tabula rasa, complete wiping of the historical context and slate, right? Clean the slate. And, you know, that's something that we did. We did that here in Detroit, of course, and embraced it to a ridiculous end. But I mean, it's almost like terrorism, right? What they were advocating. So it's really kind of fun to read that.
Okay.
It's the image that I have. It's not reading that well. But I think it's just too grainy. I got to fix it up in Photoshop before I can apply it.
So my inclination, if I had more time, I might extend this even higher than the parapet. I might extend it lower than the balcony at the bottom.
No, parapet, would that kind of create a rattle?
Well, I mean, there's probably ways to tie it back, but just compositionally, I would look at that. But I think it depends on how this looks on the facade, for one thing, how it's attached, what it's made of, what this material is made of, what it looks like from the inside. And
this is the kind of pattern that I was looking at. Just rotated 90 degrees.
So it would run vertical?
Right. Kind of keep it with the grain.
Right.
Of the building, because we're trying to pick up as many vertical components as we have.
Right.
And the hardy board at our horizontal, it'll with one another.
So how big are those openings, do you figure?
Well, right now we could kind of scale into whatever we need to, and since it's not a safety feature, and it isn't. So what is it, a 4-inch opening? Yeah,
3.5 inch at the maybe the most.
But now we could also grip so that it goes. Oh, actually, you know what? This might work nicely.
But I mean, it also can't facilitate climbing either, so it would have to be separate, like protrude out from the balcony.
Is we could have it's where the balconies are,
right?
And you're inside, right? The what's it called? The width of not limited to where it should be limited. The function it's doing, but over the windows there's nobody, so we can actually make them even wider as need be.
I just feel like, what is the function? And if it doesn't serve the function, then we don't put it in. It's on the north side of the building, so it doesn't serve like a thermal, you know.
Yeah, but we need it on the south side. We have a lot of light coming in, and we need some kind of screen.
So on the south side, if it has that function.
Like to be a really nice moment inside the bedrooms.
What's this image? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns over, and it's at the bottom, the black and white image or the gray image.
This one?
Yeah. I can't understand the writing of that either. Mm-hmm.
Like if we do go down that route in terms of using the panels, we can change the pattern based on where it's located.
Could graduate.
We reduce the opening.
So nobody could climb it. Click back one, and then look at the room to the right. Over to the right.
This one?
Yeah.
So I know, like, from my own condo in Toronto that I live in, it's beautiful, but there's too much light coming into it. And
I think this particular image is got to be right facing south.
Yeah.
That's why it's going to get such dramatic sort of contrast. Look at the image in black and white just below this post. The little one, yep, where your cursor is.
If we use a really, let's say this, will we be now catching the little light coming into the space? So if we surface, for instance, if we go polish steel or something that's going to really reflect the light, we can now create more light inside the space, because the light's going to be like, if we expect, there's going to be that light channel that comes in that's going to reflect off the surfaces and the light bounce.
But for the sort of focus of this morning's conversation, which is about that hard corner, I feel like, since we're only getting east light and north light on that element of the overall building, that this is maybe not the place to do the perforated metal. This may be the place where we just emphasize the corner by the extrusion, the L-shaped extrusion of the hardy plank form, and let that be the dominant element, and let the balusters and banisters go away as it relates to the material, right? So that could simply be glass, as you've shown it. But let's go back to your model for a second, because I'm really interested in this idea, and I'm wondering if the south facade, because we're looking at the apartment building and the alley, are there opportunities for something like what you guys are promoting here that you can do there?
Yeah, so this is the south. And I'm kind of concerned with getting a lot of light into this area. Yeah. Let's change the sun settings to...
This is a handsome building.
There's that one balcony that would get a fair bit.
Yeah, so this is like the summer equinox.
And it's June 20th, June 21st.
Yeah. Gonna be a lot of natural lighting in this phase.
Yep.
And if we don't really do anything, I was thinking maybe doing like corner shelves over the windows, just to kind of give you a little bit more shading.
Yeah.
It's going to get really hot in there. But I don't know, should we just kind of treat east facade differently than the north and the west?
Well, can you orbit around to brush from the south?
So from the south?
Keep going all the way around. Let me look at that hard corner. And now take me down to the street.
It's finally picking up the perforation.
I see that.
But then again, it needs a lot of Photoshop work just to make it look the way that I was thinking of. But this, where you would have the metal, but Easy now.
Mm-hmm.
Let me take out the shadows.
As a material, what is the thickness of this scrim, do you think, Stefan? Is this sheet that just has a hole punch with this profile cut into it?
Well, we're actually having a frame around it.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't have to be so robust.
Yeah. I'm a little concerned that it's gonna get thick, that the handrail and the post are and the bottom rail you're gonna need a bottom rail, and I just have a feeling this is gonna get unwieldingly chunky and thick, and the frame is gonna be more distracting than the pattern, which is certainly interesting. And I'm wondering if this can just be a simple galvanized, tube stock, painted tube stock that has these sheets bolted into it, sheets with a perforation pattern bolted into it.
Mm-hmm. Or could we just go with the simple seamless glass look?
Yeah, and you could do it with glass with like with a frit pattern printed into it with that shape, or right, any shape.
Maybe that's go with it. Keep it really simple and then use the shading device.
Yeah, I don't know that you have an opportunity to do a shading device anywhere except on the south facade that kisses the building next door. Can you give me a south elevation without that, like right at the cut at the alley?
Yep.
Where I don't see the tower?
Well,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, because over here, just to kind of cover it off, because that's going to be hit with so much.
And the balconies are cut conditions at the living rooms in those units, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I didn't see any reason to against the bedrooms. I think it's just usable space. I think you want to kind of have it as more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Now this part's going to change as well. We're Professor Farrow's advice in essentially creating another atrium there.
Right.
So we could pick up the load from the towers above, or from above.
It looks like these balconies are not as proud. They're not sticking out as far.
No, not these. We'll kind of make that a little bit more massive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know that I do anything like I was saying in the Bate Kasorba piece, where you extend or introduce a full size art panel or sculptural piece.
Just keep.
I would try to keep this restrained, but I do think that the corner, even looking at this elevation, that corner could pop up. The hard corner at the northeast could pop up, and I think this elevation starts to read a little bit more resolution.
60 feet in height.
Yeah, it doesn't have to come up much.
Can we even surpass?
Yeah, I think on the condition like of that element at the corner, you're able to, because it's a minimal thing, it's more of a decorative feature in the way that like a turret or a flagpole or some sort of appurtenance to the building. It's not really a building mass.
Okay. So
I would grant that. But don't take it up 10 feet. Just give it like 2 or 3 feet and see what it looks like as a proposal. And we can look at that. You can send it as a PDF.
Okay.
So I don't know if we've done anything in this last hour that helps you. I think the corner is the important place to improve. I think you have the advice on how to do that. We talked about that early on. I still think that the metal, the Equitone, or probably not Equitone, but probably like brake metal, painted or finished in a color that matches the finish of the aluminum frame for the windows, is the right way to go, and let the Hardie plank be more of a soffit or a header over the windows, and let it be the vertical L-shaped frame that meets to form the corner. Right?
Okay.
Can we go back to your drawing for a second? I just want to talk about what I saw in the section.
Can we talk about the structure a little bit too?
Yeah. So I'm just looking at the section. You've got a glulam beam. Is the head at 8 feet for these windows?
I believe so. Right with 5.
Okay, so that window frame is not going to run all the way to the underside of that glulam. There's going to be probably there's probably going to be some shims there, right? You know, because you know, you don't want that thing crushing down on that window. So I would indicate those elements. What were you going to ask about the structure?
So I think what we're showing right now is just extending, correct me if I'm wrong, Stefan, but extending the CLT flooring to cantilever out over top of the glulam beam, because we don't have columns along the outside perimeter of the balconies. So it's like a cantilever condition, which introduces the thermal bridge because it's just continuous, like high mass wood.
Balconies are a backbreaker in these buildings. That's why so many developments end up using like hung basket type. Like you look at an old loft or an old warehouse building that has been converted into apartments or into condos or a loft product. You'll see them as railings off the side. Right, that pick up an aluminum, an aluminum platform, right, with like perforated metal, so it drains, so it never holds water, that's what deals with the thermal bridging condition, right? Even in a building that I did probably 10 years ago, that was a new loft building that had precast as the floor slab and precast as the balcony with like 6-foot deep balconies. The balcony slabs were independent of the floor slab.
Okay.
And what we did is, when they met, when they kissed this way, there was an insulation break, right? So it was a gap, not a large gap, but just enough of one. And the way that it was structurally treated is that gap was centered on a ledger beam. So there was a beam, and then there was the interior slab, and then there was the exterior slab. And essentially, each slab was held by like the way your thumb and your fingers press down to hold, something like this. Right. So there was a number of these straps that were 3 or 4 feet long, right, that tied back to the main slab. So the metal strappings created an opportunity for thermal bridging, but it didn't. It was limited in quantity compared to extending the floor slab out over that beam. That was the only solution that we could come up with.
So that was a cantilever situation too?
It was a pure cantilever, and it was not a cantilever of one floor slab, sitting on a beam like this. Yeah. It was floor slab and balcony slab.
Yeah.
Right, and each was gripped to the other, and then those those straps sat on not only the interior floor and gripped the interior floor top and bottom, right? But they did the same on the balcony. And that was and then all of that was covered up by the concrete topping. So it's a very unusual condition. I've never used it again. It's just kind of the reality of that of extending that floor slab out over the
Mark,
the outside wall.
what do you think if we use that parapet condition, now the corner more pronounced, as more of a structural feature off?
Well, that may be another opportunity. I don't know how it ties down into the ground, but clearly, if it extends out past the balconies, right, it gives them something to tie into.
Mm-hmm.
That actually may be very interesting. So that the balcony ties into something solid. So like if this is that jamb, right, that's holding all of these balconies as it goes up, you end up with kind of if you go back to your floor plan, you end up with kind of a condition that those balconies can return into. They're drawn a little bit proud here anyways, but maybe where that 5'1" and the 5'4" dimension are, maybe that pier sticks out even more, and the balcony comes in a little bit more, and that balcony dies into a structural condition there. I don't know how that resolves back into the wall. I don't know what happens at 5.1.
If we did that, do you think right at the corner at 6A?
Yeah.
Could we just have like a member going into the floor CLT? And then
you probably could, like a diagonal member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or some kind of metallic moment connection. Would that work as well?
Maybe.
Braces, let's say if we're reducing, let's say 4 feet maximum or 3'6", have like a clamp that supports the length of the balcony angle into the beam and the CLT.
Yeah, let me see. Do I have paper here?
When we were talking about this too, one good point we had was that now we're starting to introduce steel into wood and concrete building, and if that's gonna,
there are issues with it, right? Because you're going to get different conditions of expansion with those materials.
Oh yeah.
So this is sort of the plan that I don't know that you can see it. Maybe not. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's kind of the plan I'm thinking of. And maybe the structure for this balcony is really something that's here, that ties back into the pier here and here, and maybe gets some diagonal resolution off of the unit corner there.
Yeah.
Could we also use as more structural, and we could break up the weight of it, or would that cause them to bow out too much?
Say that once again. You
we
broke
use
up.
those columns, those let's say the mullions that were usually structural columns holding the beam. Could we use them to tie back?
Probably. It depends on if they are tied in with the structural configuration of those CLTs. Which way do they run in this corner unit, for example? Are they running north and south or east and west? And if so maybe only one wall can have those sort of extend out like outriggers. So let's just say, for example, that I got this. So it's on the north side, right?
Okay.
right? So that you could end up doing something like that.
Okay.
But if that's, then that presumes that they're running kind of this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of like solves all of our issues, really.
And the other thing is, you're doing something that when I did it at Main North, this building that I'm talking about in Royal Oak, I solved the double corner problem that you've created by doing balconies, by doing 2 balconies.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
So I
Are those
dropped
two different-
I dropped out the notch. I dropped out the balcony at the hard corner.
Yeah.
So I just had 2 tabs that were balconies.
Yeah, because now,
Right.
yeah, because that like cantilever in the corner, if the balcony's 4 feet, that cantilever is like 5.5 or something.
Yeah, because of the diagonal distance, right?
Yeah.
And hypotenuse, right? The hypotenuse of that triangle. So that's how I solved it there.
I think we'd,
I don't know that you need to like resolve everything. I mean, you're not being sort of evaluated this semester by us, certainly not by me, based on a comprehensive, completely resolved structural framing plan. There are always going to be issues. I mean, in the course of a studio like this, there's a lot of value placed on structural resolution in this particular benchmark, as well as design. I think they're actually equivalent at this benchmark. So, there may be issues. You just may have to shrug your shoulders at them at the review. We're still waiting to hear from our structural engineer, tongue-in-cheek remark, and we'll, we can resolve that then.
Okay.
But I think there's like for me, there's like a fairly solid resolution of your building structurally, for example, that makes it a plausible building. It's not to pick on Dame Zaha Hadid, but it's not a series of like potato chips, right? You know what I mean? It's not a building of Pringles potato chips, right? Which
like that's levitating there.
Yeah. Or they're like this, they're like this, or they're like this, or they're like this. And I've seen her work, so and it's marvelous, right? It's marvelous. But I don't think that. I mean, even when you look at her early work, the work that she has done in the last 15 years is markedly different than the work she did when she was your age. Because I have drawings of her work from that period when she was still with Rem Koolhaas, and when she had just broken off onto her own. And it was really just a series of planes that cantilevered and levitated, and it was very much in a different sort of genre, because she didn't understand structure as well. And as she began to sort of evolve, and as the software evolved with her, she became more, fluent in her language. And that's where the potato chip sort of emerged in her work.
Okay.
Potato chip architecture.
Yeah. It's edible.
Okay. Well, I think
you have enough to go on.
Yeah.
You guys are in good shape.
Okay.
I'm excited about the building. I mean, these views of it, these Revit views are really high contrasty, and it would be nice if they had a little bit more of a finer grain to them. And I'm looking forward to the renders that you end up producing.
Yeah.
Evan's got an idea for the render. That's
good.
What's that? Sorry. Go ahead, John.
What's that?
No, go ahead. You were saying something.
I just said you have an idea for the renders that's phenomenal.
I can't wait to see them.
Yeah, once we get the building kind of done and I start bringing it into S-Max, I want to do like a time lapse thing.
Oh, great!
And,
keep it as an ace up your sleeve, Stefan.
oh
We got a wow.
Oh, listen. Well,
presentation.
hold on. Let's see how it goes first before I shoot myself in the foot. Don't worry. I still have a lot of tricks up my sleeve.
Yeah, well, just make sure you're backing up your stuff, okay? I don't want any. Oh shit! I lost everything because my LTU computer froze.
No. It's all home, so we're good.
All right, guys.
All right.
See you later. All right. Have a good weekend.
All right. Thank you again. And I'll try to update something and send it to you.
Sounds good. I'll look at it.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye.
That's right.